Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's stream. And a very interesting question. I mean, do we still need managers in an agile environment? And this is a daft question. Why? Because it is a bit of a hypothetical question because we don't know. Because it depends. Because it might be different for your company, but this question comes up, of course. Yeah, managers are just normal people like everyone else. They are as much afraid as anyone else of losing their job, and they are, as such, also under all other circumstances like the change curve. Maybe also not really open up for change like everyone else. Yeah, so there's not something really special about managers. There are a lot of things we assume managers are, and we too often forget they don't necessarily need to be. It's like what the ideal politiker should be like, what the ideal manager should be like, but also what the ideal employee should be like. And unfortunately, no, none of us are ideal. These are very hypothetical pictures we're drawing there. So, do we still need managers? I mean, there is an answer in my eyes, and it's very simple. If you have a business case for your company, so it's not going bankrupt or anything, but you're producing value at the end of the day, and that is higher than the cost of your company, including employees, etc., then it means you are running a company which has a product or a service which eventually yields certain gains on the market. Is a particular process, person, group of people, individuals, function helping and facilitating and improving and sort of making this whole process or this whole business case more effective and better, then there is a good reason to have it there. If you believe there could be an evolution towards this thing, yeah, so let's say in our case it's managers, so giving them certain rights, removing certain rights, adding additional scope or removing some scope, or all this at the same time, then you should do so. Always with the aim in mind to reduce cost or not reduce cost, but with the aim to improve your value stream. If there's always a cost, why not cost only? Because it's always a cost value ratio which you have to look at. So if you just look at cost, of course you can lower cost, but you need to look at the cost and the value and then make the decisions. In Agile, we talk about servant leadership. And servant leadership has as an idea that you're serving, that you're leading, but you're enabling the people around you doing their job. In large enterprises, this is very easy to express. Yeah, so if your employees need certain access rights, or need to travel somewhere, then anything is, let's say, more or less complex in an enterprise and sort of dilutes the purpose of why people are there sometimes. And yeah, if there are really complicated background processes in your, let's say, supply chain for working material, getting post-it notes, etc., and you can help your team by doing this process for them, you're probably an enabler. Or if they require an additional person in the team and it requires a whole avalanche of reports and justifications being filled out, etc., then this is where managers can really enable their teams doing their job properly. At the same time, this is the bit where I think most agile implementations target somehow the managers. At the same time, these things are impediments, even if someone does it for them, for the development team, for the people who are really adding, let's say, the direct benefit to the business, or are, let's say, a bit closer to the value stream. Nevertheless, if, let's say, certain aspects of this procurement process or this hiring process and getting an additional headcount into the company and these kinds of things, if they're really complicated to do, then you still have a person or even a series of persons working on those topics which do not add actually value to the core value stream, but they're, I call them sometimes hygiene factors. Yeah, so you have to pay taxes, you have to put a balance sheet in place, you have to explain how your profits and loss are looking like, and so on and so forth. So there's no option to get around these things. But at the end of the day, they still keep you from doing what your core business is. And thinking around how to optimize these things, how to automate these things, which actually means eventually you're getting rid of all the servant leaders who are helping along those supply chains and those hygiene factors, and basically them losing a little bit their purpose. That's of course the target of an agile organization, of any organization, to get those things which are automatable out of the way. An agile, or no, not an agile, but when I have been a freelancer, I have had 3 or 6 months contracts, and I had it only with 2 companies. So I'm for a bit of a longer period, but still, even there, I think I was freelancing for 4.5 years. What was happening there in this time was that every 3 to 6 months, there was a little process where we discussed whether we prolong my contract or not, and it was extended. And every time this happened, it was a feedback from my team towards me or the company or whatever. They said, we still require your service, and you're doing such a good service that we will want you and not anyone else who's available on the job market. And whilst we say in companies it's sometimes really hard to get positive feedback, that you get praise and that someone says you're doing a great job, I took every of these prolongations as a positive feedback to say, well, you're doing all right. We want to have you. You're adding value. You're adding more value than your salary is like. And it's really simple to fire a freelancer. You simply don't prolong the contract at the end of the period. So for me, it was really always a positive feedback. And that came to the point that I said, okay, because I didn't have a fixed job as such back then. Yeah, I did whatever was required to get this project along the way. And if someone would have said, we are changing your job description or anything, I would have said, yeah, please do. If you're prolonging my contract, it means you believe that there's something I can help with, and I will always find something to help with. Yeah, so in this environment I'm in right now, and this is since then in my blood. In former times before I've been freelancing, I would have thought I have a position in this company, and if someone, let's say, says we are externalizing all these kinds of positions, I would have probably felt a bit insecure. Maybe I would have believed back then already I will find something else in the same company, but I think I would have thought in positions. I would have thought I will find another position. during this freelancing, I wouldn't have thought about positions. I would have thought about there's enough work, I'm adding value, so I'll always be here and do something value adding. And this is what I would recommend to you as well. I mean, you can't learn what I learned, I think, without going through the journey, but if there's even a small little thing you can take out of it, most of the managers I'm meeting are doing, first of all, a good job. Secondly, they have vast experience. And thirdly, I've never seen one manager being like the other. So I've seen managers who are still so interested in software development that they would like to sit together with the teams and hack things. And I have seen others who are so eager on motivating their team members and mentoring them that they were having so many one-on-ones with these guys and also groups exercises and giving people feedback. And then I see other managers who simply are, let's say, a little bit in the distance and are observing how the team is going and giving them every now and then a nudge. And this nudge, though, was very helpful. It was these little steerings the team needed in times of where, let's say, the team was maybe not able to make some things in a self-organized, self-managed way. And all of these different kinds of managers that are doing in that regard a good job and have this experience, and they bring it to the teams or to the company. And this will never change. I'm a very strong believer that if you're implementing Agile, you're never losing any jobs. People. Some people don't want to work for whatever reason in this new world, and they will leave themselves, or let's say it will be difficult for them. But for those who are able to adopt and just look out for where their experience and their interest and their good work is required, these companies have always a vast invested interest for good reason into employees who've been in this company for longer, who know how the cookie crumbles, basically who know how this company works, who these people are, who have a network already established, who know processes, and they can always add value. And I think if you have the certainty, this is why I said at the beginning, if there's a positive business value or business case in your company, and the company is not looking for saving measures, because saving measures, these are the ones which are making people normally lose jobs. And Agile implementation just looks for making the job in a better way, making maybe a slightly different job, but at the end of the day is not interested at all in losing people. Just organizing people stronger to the business core value streams and trying to get rid of as much overhead processes and manual work as possible. So this is maybe my message out there to the managers, but also to everyone else, fearing that they're not any longer required after or during the Agile transformation. You are and you will be. But you have to do this. I think I'm very convinced that you have to do innerly, think about where can I bring myself in, and you really need to believe this. It's not enough if you're doing this as a lip service. You can repeat it as often as you want. You need to believe it yourself, that this is happening, that you are adding, you need to be truly convinced that you're adding value today, and you need to be truly convinced that you will find something to help with in the future. And it's really help. No one of us is there to be there. We are only there because we are adding aspects to the value stream. Okay. Is there anything else? Yeah, there's one more aspect. There are lots of TED Talks around who are talking about why managers exist in the first place. And one of the TED Talks, I sorry, I can't remember these names. I'm really bad at this. This person talks about that it's a division of labor. Yeah, so when you have hierarchies in a company, it's basically these people do that, and then it sort of satisfies a certain element of work, and then there are people above who are basically satisfying a different type of job, which is fine. Unfortunately, over the last few thousand years, we learned that if you're higher up in the food chain or higher up in the pyramid of a company, that you have privileges, higher salary, more power. I mean, if you read interviews on newspapers, you will very rarely read newspaper articles from a normal staff member. You will always read from the project lead. You will always read from the CEO, CFO. Yeah. Rarely you're always getting the top of a department or initiative, and you're never getting really just the normal member of the team. At least in the normal newspapers I'm reading. So it is attractive to go to the higher position, not for the work which is being done there, but for everything else. The recognition outside and inside the company, the money, the privileges, etc. And that attracts people to those positions which are there to be there. This is why I said it earlier on. No one is here to be there. We are here to do something, to have a function. And I'm not arguing that people are maybe seeing their own function still. I'm arguing that even the small aspect of privileges and status, if they are part of the mix, it is not easy for those people to say, I'll be always able to provide value in this company. I'm pretty sure of it, regardless of privilege, status, and value. I mean, let's not talk about salary, but really just about the status and the privileges alongside. People who recognize you, greet you in the aisles because you're the one manager they know, and you have this extra car, and etc. So giving those things up and say, I don't care, I'm just here for adding value to this company because I truly believe in what it does, and blah, blah, blah. This is really tough for those people who have been choosing their career path, which brings them up the ladder because they believe it is something they can actually do better than what they're able to do right now, because that would be a good reason. If you're a shitty developer, software developer, but you're great at mentoring people on social skills or social interactions, psychology-related aspects, and coaching people, and you believe, okay, this is something I might be more able to execute if I gather more experience and then go up the ladder where I'm then more responsible for these kinds of things. Sure, but this is not what we do, or what some of us do. It is ego satisfying. Also for myself, it plays a role, and that makes it. And if you are able to recognize that, and then you're able to overcome that, then you're able to roam around the company and do whatever is needed. And I think this will make you invaluable to the company. This will give you sustainable recognition, which goes beyond status, but really goes back to your own performance. So yeah, I think this is one very important aspect in the whole manager journey, that if you are an agile coach and you're having managers in front of you, you will see people who are able, and some others who are not able to give those privileges up. And as soon as that is a topic, in agile transformation is harder, because it will question the scope, the bandwidth of managers they're leading the way, telling people what to do, when to do it, etc. I will say you're not allowed to do that any longer, my dear. We're changing tides now. You're not allowed to tell your teams any longer how to do something. Because if you're doing this once, you'll destroy self-organizing, self-managed team spirit for maybe forever, for a lengthy period of time. Definitely more than a year. So if you just say, every now and then, I need to tell my team how to do their job, I can tell you no. The answer is no. It's never. You can tell the team what to do. Then you're a product owner, but nevertheless, what to do, what priority order. This is always a possibility. They might not know. They might have a good opinion on this. You should also listen, and they give you feedback on what they believe makes sense. But at the end of the day, that's something which, in most agile implementations, is not done by the team, but how it is done. This is really the team's responsibility, and this is what makes it. I'm just saying it in a way so that it becomes a bit clearer that this is what managers sometimes are used to. That there is no, let's say, area which they cannot step into when it comes to their superiors. They are employees. You're a manager of employees in a traditional setup, in a traditional conservative setup. You're basically allowed to do anything with these people within, of course, the laws and the regulations at work, but anything really. And when you do an agile implementation, there's an extra ring fencing happening, which says there are very distinct roles, and you cannot and you must not operate without these roles, and there is no exception to these rules. Because every exception to any of these rules has a more or less detrimental impact on a self-managed, self-organizing team and an efficient organization, which is making transparent decisions. And I think this is really hard for managers. For staff members, not a problem. At least for some, this particular area is normally not a problem. For them, it's more a problem that they suddenly start to only make decisions themselves about how they work, and that there are maybe the manager who did tell them yesterday, sometimes at least, how to do their job, is not doing that any longer. Of course, they can actively request it. That's a different thing. But for managers, it really means a cut down, a ring fencing, a limitation towards their leadership abilities, their allowances, their freedom to move and roam. And at the other end, it opens something which might not be that interesting for managers, and that is strategic leadership, providing visions to teams, ensuring the working atmosphere is right, figuring out and sort of assuming how the world could look like 5 years down the line, and try to say, if that happens, what would be our strategic key moves? Do we have to invest more in artificial intelligence? Because today it's not happening, and it's not even happening tomorrow. But if we say there is almost certainty that this is becoming a big deal, then we have to start this journey today. So these kinds of things, just thinking in those terms and trying to sort of develop the company structurally into a certain direction, building teams, inventing new products, testing out new value streams, and these kinds of things. Or making sure that larger organizational impediments are getting removed, and that the teams are able to focus on what they can do. This is really hard for managers. This is really hard for staff members. This is really hard for organizational impediments are getting removed out of the team's way, out of the value stream's way. Also an option, yeah. But yeah. So yeah, I think now I'm really done. It's actually a huge topic. I'm a true believer that we can go through an agile transformation without losing people. There is no distinct group who is kept or created or removed in such an agile transformation. Of course, if we go for agile frameworks, we will see certain role types existing. But it's too simple to say that in your organization, certain jobs won't exist after or during an agile transformation. But you should be open for change and for changing yourself, and then everything else will roll on. Wish you a nice rest of the week. I had a nice weekend, but unfortunately I met a few people apparently in that place who had corona, so although I feel fine, I'm not risking it, otherwise I would have been in the office today. So anyway, let's see how this